Hey there, welcome back to the Free Black Women's Library YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back to another Rambly reaction to the hit series, the provocative, incredible, amazing, brilliant HBO limited series, one season series, written, produced, starring, and directed by Michaela Coel, based on a true to life experience of Michaela Coel's. This is it, y'all. This is the end. And now the end is near, and so we face the final curtain. It's a wrap, y'all. The show is over. There will be no season 2. I don't know if I can handle a season 2, to be honest. This show was a lot. I would watch it, of course, and I would react to it, of course. But Michaela has said from the beginning that this was meant to be a one and done, and there is no rumors, no talks, no season 2 thing, idea out there. She has moved on to other projects, and I'm so excited to see what they are. I cannot wait. Anything Michaela does, I will run to immediately and most likely talk about on this channel because I am a fan. I am a hardcore fan. I love her. I love her work. I'm inspired by her. I think she is amazing. So, anyway, let's get into this episode, this final episode of I May Destroy You. So this one was a bit fragmented. It was kind of all over the place. So I'm not going to do what I normally do, which is like a scene by scene recap, and then my 4 hurts, my 4 heals, and my favorite. Instead, I'm just going to talk about the episode flat out, still share my hurts and my heals and my favorites, and then I'm also going to share some pivotal moments from the series as a whole. So this is probably going to be a long video, so if you want, you can go grab yourself some water or some wine or both. Make yourself a cocktail, get comfortable, and yeah, let's dig into this trippy as fuck episode. Okay, so the name of the episode was Ego Death. And Ego Death is not only the name of the bar where all of this trauma kicked off, where Bella was drugged. Ego Death is also a concept within psychology that was developed by a old school psychologist named Carl Jung. Now, this is what I've read, this is what I've researched, because I had heard of this idea before. I think it's the name of a song by Twigs that just came out, and there might be a rock band named Ego Death. So it's kind of one of these things that people say and people think about and people explore. But what it basically means is that it's a complete loss of the subjective self-identity. It is kind of like an identity crisis, right? It's a moment in time that's either sparked by trauma or sparked by some type of self-realization in where you just tend to question what it is you believe in, what it is you stand for, who you are in the world, how you see the world. You know, it's one of these things that just causes a shift, a complete shift, and a complete life change, right? So it's not a bad thing or a good thing, but it is something that I would say can be painful, can be emotionally taxing on yourself and the people who care about you. But it's also necessary. It's also can cause growth for you as a person. It can help you to grow more compassionate, more emphatic. When you release the ego, when you shed the ego, when you dead the ego, you more of the real who you are and who you're meant to be and what you feel your purpose is begins to develop and burst forth. So An ego death. It's a transformative experience, and yeah, it's described as a meaningful episode of transformation by one of the psychologists. When I was reading about it, that's how he described it, as a meaningful episode of transformation. When you're first born, your ego develops based on how you're parented, based on your community, based on your surroundings. Your ego starts to develop, and that's your ego represents who you believe you are or how you want to be seen. Okay, so it's like your representative, and it's just one aspect of who you are. You have different aspects of your personality. Some are subconscious, some are conscious, some are unconscious, and the ego is the most conscious part. It's the most purposeful part, right? So that's why we say when someone's egotistical, it means that they think they are more than they actually are. That means they have too much ego, right? What's that song? Got a big ego, such a big ego. Kanye. Yeah. So, when someone goes through, it could be something as simple as you finding out that you're attracted to the same sex. Like, you thought you were hetero your whole life, and then you, as a woman, you think you could never be attracted to other women, and then all of a sudden you meet a woman, and it's like, whoa, like everything you thought about yourself is questioned, maybe. Or if you are married and your spouse cheats on you, that could cause something. Having the same job for 30 years and all of a sudden they just fire you with no warning, that can cause something. So it could be a little baby trauma, it could be an intense trauma, suffering a loss, a really deep loss, losing a parent, losing a loved one, all these different things. Like, these are things that happen in life, and they tend to change you. So, one of the things that they taught us when I was doing my yoga teacher training is that heartbreak and heartache, when your heart splits open, it causes more light to shine through and enter in. So there is always a positive aspect of heartache and heartbreak, because on the other side of it is more clarity, right? On the other side of it is more understanding, is more compassion, is more humanity, right? So that's a long-winded, rambly way of saying that, pain is a part of life, and hopefully it helps us grow as people. Thus, the ego dies, and you're reborn, and you decide what you believe in and who you are, right? Again and again and again. You can have ego deaths throughout your entire life. You can have one big one. You can have tiny, tiny ones. I'm not a psychologist. I just read a lot, and I listen a lot, and I think that a lot of what Michaela used to tell this story is connected to the field of psychology and the field of mental health and the field of trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, and as my friend Shalewa said, post-traumatic growth. So, anywho, let's get into this episode for real, for real. It goes down at ego death, and I think Bella went through her own ego death of sorts through this experience, through this assault. Now, we have 3 scenarios. All 3 are made up, right? When we first start out, we see Bella and Terry are at the bar. They're sitting out front, and Tariq walks in. And when Bella sees Tariq, it all comes flashing back. How they dragged her out the bar, how they put her in a taxi, how they went all the way to a whole nother bar, went down into a basement bathroom. She fell down and knocked herself in the head. And David, also known as Patrick, aka Patrick, Scumbag 1, raped her by mouth while Tariq stood guard so that he could do that shit. So these men are obviously both trash, both complete and utter scum. I hate them so much. You have no idea how much. They played these parts really, really well, especially David. I hated him. Like, if I ever see David in public, the actor, we might have a problem because he played that part too well. He was a creep. So we have 3 scenarios of Bella confronting her rapist. And if you're a survivor of any type of sexual assault, trauma, or abuse, this is part of your process, is thinking about, what would I do if I ever saw that person that hurt me? How would I handle it? You know, and it can be an obsession. It can be an obsession because you question, it's a part of that guilt and a part of that shame, because you question, like, if I had done something differently, what happened to me, would it have still happened? You know, and then also, if I see the person that hurt me that first time, am I going to be brave enough to stand up to him? Am I going to run and be afraid? Am I going to let this person take advantage of me again? Like, it's a constant obsession. And I think that if you have ever been a victim of any type of abuse or assault, you probably could relate to that mental, that like little hamster wheel that runs in your mind over and over again, all these different scenarios. Plus, Arabella's a writer, and she's trying to finish that book, right? She's got all her note cards up on the wall, and it seems like all her thoughts are laid out. She just needs an end. She just needs to figure out, like, how am I going to end this story? So, in scenario 1, we have the revenge plot, right? Terry's like, what's the plan? You have a plan? Bella says, yes, I have a plan. Are you down to do this with me? And of course, Terry's like, yeah, I'm down for whatever. Terry's a ride or die, like, especially since she still has some guilt and shame around what happened. So of course she's gonna say yes. And it wasn't too obvious at this point that this was a dream sequence, but I'll tell you what gave it away. So Bella's like, all right, I want to hurt him. And Terry says, let's do it. So who do you call when you want to enact a revenge plot against a man? Who do you call when you want to hurt someone who has hurt you? Possibly a slightly sociopathic, you know, a little bit, got some rage and anger issues, right? Who do you call? Theo, of course. Hook, line, Theo's the sinker. So Theo shows up, and she's like, all right, I just have to figure out where the drugs are. So they're all sitting there, and they're watching David/Patrick at the bar. Terry in the hat, which is supposed to be some type of costume. Bella in the white wig that Kwame wore for Halloween. And Theo, right? So the first clue that gave it away that this was not real life was Bella had a whole new dress, right? I'm like, where'd she get that dress? She just had a wig and a hat 5 seconds ago. Now all of a sudden she's got a black dress on. Like, I believe that Theo would show up if Bella called her and was like, my rapist is here in the bar and I want to hurt this motherfucker. I believe Theo would show up. So I believe that part. But Bella being in that whole new dress was weird to me. And then Theo had the red streaks in her hair, like the ones she had when they were in school. She didn't have those in her hair in real time as an adult. So I said, okay, Theo's hair is like she was when she was a little kid. Bella's got a whole new dress on. Okay, whatever. So Theo says, how's your dancing? I said, okay, suspension of belief. That's what I'm going to go for. Maybe they're just rushing through time. So Theo says, how's your dancing, Terry? You're going to go dance with Tariq and distract him while I pick David Patrick's pocket and get the drugs out of his pocket. Then I'm going to take those same drugs into the bathroom, pull out a syringe. Theo just happens to have a syringe. I believe Theo would have a syringe. Uses toilet water and mixes it with the drugs. Fills up the syringe with the drugs and the toilet water. So far, I'm like, yeah, Theo would do all this, but something still feels weird. So, meanwhile, Bella's flirting with David Patrick at the bar, and she's pretending like she's drinking the drink that he gave her. This part was hilarious. The way she spit it over her shoulder and poured it back over her head. Michaela Cole is a fucking hilarious actress. I was cracking up. And I said, how surreal and how ironic and how brilliant of an artist are you that you're showing us this like horribly creepy, seedy, traumatic, gritty moment in time, but you're still giving us a chance to laugh. And it just kind of released the tension of that moment, because we know that they're trying to set him up. Is it going to work? So Bella pretends like she's drugged. David Patrick grabs hold of her, follows her into the bathroom. Terry's in the other stall waiting with the syringe full of drugs. David Patrick puts her on the toilet, takes her underwear off and puts it in his pocket. She says the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. He freaks out like, holy shit. Because he's a fucking scumbag creep who only wants to fuck women when they're drugged out of their minds and when he's in total control. All right? He's mental. He's got some weird sociopathic, twisted tendencies with him. So she's wide awake. So he's all nervous now. She slams the door to the stall so that he can't get out. Theo, I said Terry earlier, Theo sticks him in the ankle with the syringe, puts the entire dose into his body from underneath the bathroom stall. Bella lets him go. He runs out. Tariq follows after him. He's drugged out of his mind. He's so fucking out of it. And Tariq is like, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. You're acting weird. Tariq goes back to the bar, probably to go creep on some other woman. Meanwhile, Theo, Terry, and Bella are outside, standing in a line, and they start following him as he's walking through the streets of London. Now, this is when I was like, this is not real. Because how did they get out there? How did they get out there before him, right? So, I don't know. I didn't know that it was like a fantasy or something in her mind, but I just felt like something was starting to be more and more off about the situation, because they were still in the bathroom stall talking, and he had already walked blocks. And somehow they found him and happened to be pretending to be in a line as he walked past. Too convenient, too convenient. This show is way too smart for that. But anywho, they're following him and he's out of it. They're following him for blocks and blocks and blocks. So we have this walking thing again, walking through the streets of London, I'm guessing. Bella's like, are you sure you spiked him? She's like, yeah, I'm sure. How can you be sure? Because he can't hear us. We're like 1 to 2 feet behind him and he can't hear us. And she's like, that's a good point. Finally, he starts to stumble. And then he turns around and he sees them and he passes out. Terry says, get your fucking panties so we can go, please. Bella runs over there. Theo runs over there. Terry's like, y'all can have that. Theo pulls the panties out of his suitcase. She's like, I got them. Let's go. Why did I just say suitcase? Suit jacket. Theo pulls the panties out of his suit jacket. Says, got your panties, let's go. Bella says, I want to see his thing. He saw my thing. I want to see his thing. Say what? Say what, Bella? Okay. So Theo's like, fine. So Bella pulls his penis out and she's holding it in her hand. And while she's holding his penis in her hand, he wakes up. Theo starts to strangle him with Bella's panties. While she's strangling him, Bella starts punching him in the face, viciously punching him in the face, to the point where there was like blood all over. She's just like punching to the point where she kills him, right? They pick up his arm, it just drops. Theo's like, okay. Theo springs into action. I'm like, Theo's bodied somebody before. She's like, all right, so we gotta get rid of the body. We gotta do something with him. We gotta do something with the body. Now, this is when it starts to feel even more fake, because there's no witnesses, there's no one around, no one sees this go down. We're out in the middle of the street. It's a public street. Come on. And Bella's like, just kind of looking super shocked and scared. Terry is like, holy fuck. Bella takes David Patrick's body, rides the bus home, pretends like he's her boo. Oh, he's just had a rough night. He's, you know how boys are, rough housing. There's a beautiful older black woman who's like, boys will be boys. I'm like, damn, patriarchy's a bitch. He's dead. And she thinks, oh, he's just drunk and he just had one of his boyish nights out. He's dead. Bella drags his dead body home and shoves him under the bed. And then she sits down and starts to write out the end of her book. The last note card that's up, it says Garden Ben. So we want to complete this book with something after that moment of being in the garden with Ben. She writes things out, she puts it up on the wall, there's blood on the wall, then she knocks the card down that she just put up there, and she walks out. Scenario 2. Scenario 2 was giving me restorative justice teas. It was giving me abolition teas. It was giving me like transformative justice teas. It was giving me empathy. It was giving me forgiveness. It was giving me showing compassion. It was giving me like part of your healing process is to see the person who hurt you as human and not as a demon or a non-human or some force of evil, but just as another person who did something wrong. I'm not that evolved. I'm not there yet. I would like to consider myself an abolitionist, and it's something that I read about and I watch a lot of lectures on and I think about a lot. But the idea of like hugging my abuser, having my abuser sitting on my bed, talking to my abuser, being sad if harm comes to my abuser, I'm not there just yet. So scenario 2 is the empathy scenario. In this one, Bella is unsure and confused. She's really, really super shook. She never really thought about what she would do if she saw her raper. Like, she's just, a bit of a mess. In scenario 1, she's got the costume, she's got the plan, she's got the accomplice. In scenario 2, it's more like Terry takes charge and Terry comes up with the plan. So she's thinking, in this scenario, she's thinking, what would Terry do if I didn't know what to do, if I wasn't sure what I would do? how, and Terry was there with me, like, what would she do, right? And at one point she says, I'm fixated on the past, not in a future where I'm reunited with my raper. This is what she says to Terry when Terry asks her, you have a plan. You've been coming here for months every night thinking you would see him again because the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime, but you don't have a plan. What the fuck, Bella? Fine, I have a plan. It's just going to involve a lot of cocaine. So, you know, and I know I'm jumping all over the place because this episode was really fragmented. For me, anyway. I don't know if it worked for y'all, but for me, it was really, really fragmented, and I definitely had to watch it more than once because there were a lot of visual cues, like always. She's like, all right, we're going to get some cocaine. We're going to get a lot of cocaine. You're going to do a lot of cocaine so that when David Patrick tries to drug you again, it's going to counteract with the drug. So, you know, it's going to, and that's not how drugs work. That's not how chemicals work. It was a very horrible plan. It was a dangerous plan. Bella could have had a heart attack. She could have, like, OD'd. Like, she could have had a brain, you know? So definitely don't try that at home, kids. Don't try that at home. So in this scenario, they're playing Firestarter by Prodigy, which is like one of my favorite songs of all time. Bella is completely wired on cocaine, completely, like, doing way too much. She goes up to David Patrick and she starts flirting with him. He does his usual shtick. He gets her a drink. He puts the drugs in the drink. This time, she drinks it. She drinks the whole thing, as opposed to scenario 1 where she tosses it over her head. In scenario 2, she drinks the whole ass drink, but because she's done all this cocaine, the sedative doesn't work, whatever. But she pretends like she's, you know, she pretends like she's all drugged out of her mind. David Patrick guides her. He kind of like ushers her, corrals her towards the bathroom, takes her into the bathroom stall, and prepares to do his rapey bullshit. And she comes to life once again, just like in the first one, and she's like, this time she says, you put something in my drink. And he's like, oh, you knew that and you drank it anyway. And then he starts to get real nasty, real misogynist, real disgusting.